there is my contact information. Please feel free to contact me or get on our website for any issues you have. The slides are at that link. I just thought I would introduce a few of our new assessments to you today, go over a couple of our featured assessments, and then talk about some of the solutions that we have for current issues that everyone's working through. So one assessment that is just coming out is called the Sensory Assessment of Neurodevelopmental Disorders, the SAND. And actually, Dr. Paige Seiper will be presenting on this shortly this afternoon. I hope you all can attend. She'll give a lot more information about it. So the SAND seeks to address these questions we might have. How do we intervene with sensory reactivity in students? For example, auditory hyporeactivity looks very different and has different treatment recommendations than a tactile seeking type of sensory reactivity. So just saying a student has sensory reactivity issues is limiting the information we know and the treatments we can prescribe for those issues. Also, it addresses the issues of parent report reliability. You may have used a checklist. Parents may have limited insight into what sensory issues their kids are experiencing. They might just have gotten used to some particular behaviors they have. We need some output that quickly summarizes critical sensory issues so you can rapidly identify the type of behavior and sensory modality that you would see. You want to know, should you prescribe, some sort of tactile stimulus or something that helps reduce auditory noise in the classroom. And we also need some aids to help in our diagnosis of ASD. Right now there's limited tools. Diagnostic criteria as far as sensory reactivity is limited, even in the description of the DSM. So the SAND seeks to address all those issues. It is the first clinician-administered observational assessment and corresponding caregiver interview for sensory issues. Particularly the observation is what sets us apart. It gives you objective data from an actual performance test in front of you. That's in keeping with gold standard autism assessment practices, which combines a clinical observation with caregiver interview. So going with best practices. And then it gives you information in terms of the type of sensory modality the child's experiencing in visual, tactile, and auditory domains, crossed with the way that behavior is that sensory reactivity behavior is being expressed in terms of hyperreactivity, hyporeactivity, or seeking, and is not dependent on verbal ability. So it can be used with someone with severe language issues or minimally verbal or non-English speaking populations. It's efficient, can be used by clinicians in a variety of disciplines. So like I said, basically you're going to have two different interviews, an observation and interview. That'll give you the visual, auditory, tactile domains and information about what types of behaviors. It's very short. There's only 3 items for each one of those different scales and then one optional severity rating. So that is the SAND. Another new instrument we have is called Structured Methods in Language Education. SMILE. It's a nice acronym. And it addresses the following needs. There's a need to build language skills in low to nonverbal populations. There's a need to incorporate multiple modalities and instruction methods in treatment. So you need to hit on different ways the person has of learning via visually, auditory, writing, and through sight words and phonics as well. It's engaging, the activities are fresh, they're varied, they keep people entertained. We need that in instruction for verbal abilities to flourish, and it needs to be easily implementable. We also, especially now, need to have some tools that can be used in home. So to address all those needs, the SMILE kit features, it's a complete language program. So it gives you all the tools you need to build language skills in a low to no verbal population. It incorporates multisensory instruction. There's hearing activities, writing activities, expression activities, and complete. You have reproducible work and lesson plans that will guide the practitioner through administering the whole curriculum. There's a structured methodology and assessment incorporated, so you can assess, test, retest, and assess change. It's got demonstrated validity with ASD, ID, and other limited verbal populations, which I'll talk about now. It's evidence-based treatment. In fact, this whole program was implemented in school districts in New York, where it was researched amongst an intellectual disability diagnosed grade school population. The researchers found that students who taught with SMILE demonstrated greater reading abilities, and you can kind of see the graphs there, the greater progress from beginning to end of treatment among the treatment group, those who use SMILE versus the control group. You can read more of these details and then the working paper for this on the webpage. Another nice thing is SMILE required fewer staffing than similar programs. Part of that is it can be used by paraprofessionals, people who are working in the classroom, or you can link in to build in home-based support. Another new, this is a fun product, Stop and Relax. Who doesn't want that? This is actually a yoga-based relaxation training program for students with special needs. It can go from children to adults. It's designed to teach self-calming skills and build resilience. The curriculum is customizable, so it can be used to address certain needs that students have or that the program has, and be used by educators and therapists. It has the entire curriculum that has photos for positions, activities, lesson plans. There's a little example of it. Walks you through everything that you need. Can also be integrated at home, so you could use some of these in a remote setting. Evidence supported, you can see on the web page support for how students made improvements after using Stop and Relax. You don't have to be a yoga therapist or certified to administer it. Now let me tell you about some of our existing assessments that have been around, but are continual to be useful tools. The Leiter-3, and so ask yourself these questions. Why would you need a nonverbal test? Any student that you have with language communication issues could benefit from one. We know that verbal ability is highly correlated with SES, so we don't want to just be perpetuating, reinforcing those who've had access to language. Instead, we want to look at underlying abilities. What issues do you all get referrals for? Anyone get attention issue referrals out there? I'm guessing a lot. So when you get a referral saying a student has an attention issue, there's probably a lot of things you want to look for. Probably cognition, attention, and memory. And you also want an efficient test that will test quick and give you quick results, and one that's current with current demographics and in particular special clinical cases has validity. And the Leiter-3 addresses all those issues. It's a completely nonverbal administration. It's not like some assessments that claim to be nonverbal, but there's verbal components, nonverbal administration and response. It's efficient, and the scales are distinct. It gives you different information in different scales. You're talking just 4 subtests for cognitive, 2 for attention, 2 for memory, and it separates, for example, processing speed from cognition, whereas some other assessments have time components in cognition, so you can't really tease out processing speed. Good for probably almost all the ages you're working with. Validated, well-researched with clinical groups, and you can actually get growth scores on the Leiter-3, which show change over time, are very sensitive to change, so you can assess, treat, and then reassess and see how change has happened. Internet addiction test, this is one that's getting a lot of traction right now. We definitely want to assess problematic use of electronics in our populations. Addiction, behavioral addictions show a lot of the same components, mechanisms as substance use addictions. The Internet addiction test is the most widely used assessment for electronics addiction, and it not only shows an overall severity of addiction, but also breaks it down by domain. So you can identify if someone's using electronics because of social avoidance versus work avoidance, and treat those differently. There's different versions to match the lifespan, some that are parent reports, some that are self-reports. Adolescents fit in the middle, so you could do a self and a parent report and see how both stakeholders are viewing their own addiction issues. This would be great to use in psychoeducation or health group. It's got reproducible forms. You could do an assessment at the beginning, assess people's view of their electronics behavior, go over healthy behaviors, and then reassess later and see how your group impacted things. So just briefly, we are working with clinicians, with schools to accommodate any of our tests. We found a lot of success in allowing for remote assessments. A lot of our tests, we can provide materials for people to use to demonstrate via a Zoom chat like we're using, and then assess that way. We can give you some guidance on how you can adapt some tests to be used in remote assessments. Just contact us for permissions before you go ahead and do these, and we can work it out. There's no additional cost. A lot of these instruments that I talked about are usable and adaptable for home support, so they can be used for home settings. And just contact me if you have any questions about anything. I enjoy working with people to help meet the needs that you have for testing and to adapt any materials and work through some times. And like I said, there's the links for any of the tests, which you can find on the web page for events, or just Google the test name plus Stoelting and it'll get you there. Okay, well, thanks. Good to virtually see everyone, and please let me know if you have questions. Have a great day.